Welcome to Cycle Breakers and Moneymakers, a podcast for women of color and first gen who are breaking generational cycles and glass ceilings by going places no one before them has ever gone. I'm your host, leadership coach, and eldest daughter of immigrants, Mariela De La Mora. I left a 16-year marketing career to create a multiple six-figure-a-year coaching business as a single mom. Each week, you'll learn how to build unshakable self-trust, become in demand, lead with confidence, and make more money by being more of who you are. Hello, you guys. I am recording this. This is like the first podcast episode I've ever recorded, like not at my desk. If you're watching the clip later, you'll probably see it. I just want to be more comfortable when I talk to you guys. And the only time I ever sit at my desk is when I'm coaching. Other than that, I sit in my egg chair in my living room, which is where I'm sitting now. I feel like my egg chair has become like synonymous with my brand. It's like this big, like literally it's shaped like half an open egg, and I got it from Target like years ago, and it's just like my favorite place in the house. Whenever people come over, they love just sitting in this big ass egg chair, and I just feel comfortable. I'm also a little bit like groggy because I went out last night. It was a friend's 40th birthday, and the lounge that we were at had like, it just so happened that it was like MySpace themed like party, like MySpace themed music. And I was like, okay, they knew we were coming. This is a 40th birthday. We were literally at the clubs when MySpace was a thing, right? And so it was just so fun. And it's funny because now I'm just like enjoying my, slow morning I normally don't get to have. My daughter's at my parents' house. She's like already texting me being like, when are you going to pick me up? And I'm like, girl, I will be there in a minute. But this last week, I normally record my podcast episodes on Friday, but I didn't actually for reasons that I'm going to talk to you about today, because Friday was when I announced on Instagram that I got featured in Forbes. And I just like the rest of my day just kind of like went with me responding to messages, my body kind of like adapting to the fact that I was getting like all of this praise and I didn't know what to do with it, and just really like soaking it in. So that's what I'm going to talk to you all about today. I'm realizing like how far back like my experience goes when it comes to PR and pitching. It's really been at least 10 years, because 10 years ago, I was a startup co-founder, and a big part of in tech is just like getting into the press, building relationships with the media. We got into Marie Claire magazine, we got into Bustle, like all these different places. And so I was like, no, I've actually been doing this for a long time, which is why when this opportunity came up, I knew exactly what to do. And I think I'm realizing like things that I think are just common sense and that I talk to my clients about and coach my clients on, I realize that even when people hire media agencies and people to pitch them to podcasts, they are horrible. 99% of the time, they are so bad. And people are paying companies and paying people to send bad pitches. That makes your brand look bad. It makes it look bad. Listen to this podcast episode. I am going to tell you what I don't know how. I don't know why. It is so rare. It shouldn't be this rare, but most pitches are bad pitches, and that is why they don't get picked up. So I am going to tell you what to do and what not to do ever. And I think it also helps that I have been the receiver of the pitches as well, because in my last role, I was a decision maker like for the company and, just held a lot of budget, and I received pitches every single day. Sometimes people called the office and pretended to be someone else and and talked to me. And so like, I literally will like see it, and I'm probably the hardest person to ever get to because I just scan like bad pitches. You can never get to me. You could never touch me with like bad pitches because I can see it. And which is why I'm like, oh my God, I really need to just talk about this. Like what literally the first sentence, what you title it, the context, where you pitch, don't be trying to go for everything. All of this will make it so that most of the time, if you do go for something, you're probably going to get it or it's very, very likely. So what I'm going to do in this episode is I'm breaking down exactly how I landed this Forbes feature last week and how you can position yourself for being featured in major media opportunities, like even if you don't have PR connections, or you can just create them yourself is essentially what is going to happen. But in my case, I did not have a connection into Forbes, right? So in this episode, I'm going to cover the exact process that I used to pitch myself to this Forbes article and get selected out of 33 applicants, how I used Instagram to make sure that my name was top of mind for the journalist, what I learned from being a startup co-founder 10 years ago and getting featured in major publications like Marie Claire magazine in print, and what the biggest mistakes are that people make when they pitch the media and what to do instead, and why your personal story is your biggest PR asset, and how to frame it in a way that the media actually pays attention to and that they actually want to hear and that will get you selected. And I'm then going to wrap with just some steps that you can take today to increase your visibility and attract media features. So let's dive in. I want to first tell you, before I kind of dive into the step-by-steps, like the day that I found out that I got this thing, it was like Thursday morning and I had pitched it the previous weekend. So literally last weekend I pitched it. It came up where I am subscribed to something called Quoted. It's QWOTED. It is a platform that journalists post media opportunities. And if you want to be the recipient of media opportunities, you create a profile, you put a bio and a little bit about who you are, any relevant links. So you make it easy for people to check you out. And then you set up alerts for keywords. You don't want to set up too many. I mean, I guess it's fine, but like you can set up a keyword so that way any media opportunity that comes up that matches what you are looking for, so specific keywords, you will get those sent to your inbox. Now, I have been receiving these for a really long time. I'll talk to you about that process, but essentially that is how it came about. So I pitched it on the weekend. And then when I finally found out like she was going to choose, part of our interview for Thursday, like I didn't know what to do. At first, I was like, wait a minute. So I've been featured in Forbes. And then the first people that I sent, this is how you know, like this is like an inner child happy. Like my inner child wanted to tell my parents first. So I sent them the screenshot. I told them, and my dad responded back with a voice memo. And I did not grow up hearing "I'm proud of you" very often. I don't know if my parents would agree with that, but I don't remember it. I think this was something that they felt safer saying to us as we grew up. And so the way that he said it, his voice actually felt like I heard it cracking. I saved it and it just made my eyes well up. And he just said, "Mija, I'm so, so proud of you. This is amazing. What you're doing, just keep doing it. It's all working out. And we're so proud of you. We love you." And I listened to it multiple times. It almost makes me want to cry thinking about it. And it was just like little me was just like, yay, like I did it. And I think it's just because of like what Forbes represents. It's almost like when I think about if a person were to represent Forbes, it would be like a white man in a suit, And so it just meant the world for me to have space in that. And just for my parents to tell me they were proud of me. They dropped my daughter off later on that day. Normally she goes to their house, but she wanted to come over and they brought me flowers. My mom brought me roses. And I just was like, wow, this is a really big deal for like my family, And then I told my sisters, I told to my best friends, Liz and Erica, and then I just didn't tell anybody else. And so when I finally said something on Friday, it just felt like it was real. And it made me realize like how uncomfortable I was with receiving praise. And I have no problem being on stages, but like receiving praise felt like, oh my God, like too many people are looking at me and like they're saying nice things to me and I don't know what to do with it. But that's how I knew that it was also a moment of healing, because it's like, this is a big deal for other people as well. And this is what happens when women of color win, right? When we take up space in places that we normally don't see, people like us, especially speaking about our experiences, because what I talked to them about was how at a certain point I got up to the corporate ladder and I was like, why am I even fighting so hard to be here when I'm the only person who looks like me and I'm fighting so hard to, keep climbing this ladder. Meanwhile, I'm a parent, so I talked about my experience, right? And it's so important that when we do get these opportunities that like we bring ourselves with us, we bring our stories and we bring our identities with us. And so I think that's why whenever I've experienced wins, I feel like my community feels like it's for them as well, that they truly believe that things are possible for them. And this is why I wanted to talk to you about this today, because you don't have to be like the CEO of a 8-figure startup to be featured. And you all have really, really powerful stories. And so this is what I wanted to share, today. And I think what I recognized about why this was significant was because what I really wanted to get across was that when women of color know how to make their own money, if you can create your own dollar that somebody else did not pay you in a check, you are the one issuing the check. You know how to create money. That is reclamation. That's why I called the mastermind reclamation. When you can do that, nobody can take that away from you. And lots of oppressive systems base their power on being able to control you and take away your security through the workforce and control your pay and being able to take your job and like all this shit. And so I really talked about how I left that security. I left multiple six figures to go create my own. So I wanted to show a different side in the story that wasn't just, even though obviously I didn't know which part they were going to pick. They didn't end up, showcasing all of it, but that's what I wanted to showcase. So it's important that when you do get the platform, like you feel safe to bring yourself with you. And that's the example that I wanted to set. So that's what it was like when I saw my name in Forbes. And so if you're obviously wondering at this point, like, okay, what can I do in order to set myself up for opportunities like this? So one of the things specifically for this, which I alluded to earlier, was I've had a profile with Quoted for a couple of years now. QWOTED. And I just usually delete the emails, to be honest, because they're just like, oh, we're looking for leaders. Either it's something that I don't fit the bill at all, or it's just like the words are just generic. And I don't want to pitch myself for generic opportunities, meaning I'm just not well positioned for it. It's like I could, but if I know that I'm not well positioned for it, I'm just not going to do it because that's not a goal of mine. Like it's not a major goal of mine to go get featured. If something lands in my inbox and I'm like, wow, they're specifically speaking to me, then I will pitch for it. So literally it had been 2 years since I'd pitched for anything, but it said seeking women of color who created financial independence through entrepreneurship. And so there was a 6-hour turnaround. I replied right away. In the very, very first sentence, I know how important the first sentence is. So I immediately was like, first sentence, I alluded to how I'm one generation removed from poverty because my dad grew up in a ranch with his siblings and no running water and no electricity. And yet I have come from that and I've created $1 million business as a single mom. Like I made a statement. I was like, bam, like you're going to feel my first sentence. And then, because I know that everything else that I say after that is secondary, when you as a journalist are reading a sentence and you're like, whoa, this person has a powerful story. And many of you have powerful stories too. You're just not telling them like that. So I opened up with that. Then I just introduced myself. And that's just so that she could invite me to be interviewed, right? That wasn't even like the full thing. And then I found her on Instagram and I sent her a message, and I don't want to be pushy, right? All I wanted to do was say, hi, I just wanted to let you know that I responded to your call for this particular article and just wanted to introduce myself. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions. By the way, I'm really excited that this piece is even being written, right? I thought that the whole article was going to be about women of color. It wasn't, but I'm glad that she was looking for diverse voices. So that's all I did. And she responded and she said, yep, I'm going to be looking through everything today. And the reason that I did that and why it is important, and you don't want to go and like try to pitch yourself on a second platform. Don't do that. But if you can, and you have pitched, I personally was just like, keep it brief and just say hi. And the reason that I did that was because as much as I wrote a pitch that I know was compelling, it also doesn't capture your full brand. So if you were to just glance at my Instagram, you would see things that the essence of that would not come across in the pitch. So that's another thing you can do is just introduce yourself, follow the journalist. And then I saw that she writes, and her own brand was about money and women of color. So I'm like, okay, this is also just good to have different journalists in your network who write about topics that are related to the work that you do. Rather than just following general journalists, you really want to build relationships, like genuine relationships with folks who care about writing about things that you are an expert on or that you have a story in, right? So to kind of recap here, using Quoted, I didn't pitch for everything. I just don't bother doing that. I don't want to be in everything. I want to be in something I'm uniquely positioned for. So if you see something that specifically speaks to your experience, respond to it. The first sentence is everything. Like, don't be generic and don't be like, hi, my name is so-and-so and I help da 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 da. I'm just like, okay, tell me something that's like, bam, first, then you can do the other stuff. First sentence is everything. I also told a specific part of my story that aligned with the intention of the article. You don't just go tell your whole life story because we have a lot of parts to our story, but what part is relevant to this article? Tell that and like open with something really powerful, right? And here's where it's very important to not give a Miss America answer. A Miss America answer is just like something that you would say and no one would disagree with, but you also aren't saying anything, right? So some people are doing that in their marketing, by the way, too. You're giving Miss America stuff in your marketing. And I'm just like, yeah, that's fine. Like that makes sense. I would all agree, like, but you're not actually making a statement. This is the time to make a statement. It may mean you don't get chosen, but when you do get chosen, you get chosen, right? So that's another thing I did is customize the pitch, used Instagram to reach out, introduce myself, and that is it. And this is also why it's very important that your brand aligns with what your thought leadership is, because that's kind of your receipts, right? Like when somebody checks you out, does it look like you believe in those things? Does it look like what you're pitching and what you're saying there matches up with what's on your Instagram feed, or is your Instagram feed or whatever, platform you have like so sterile and bland that like you're not really saying anything? And that's why it's so important that you are saying consistent things across all platforms. So that's one thing that I would say. If you were going to set up a profile, this is just one place, but if you're going to set up a profile, set up keywords, and just make sure that you are linking to platforms that you want to actually be vetted because they're going to check you out, and then respond to the ones that feel like they're speaking specifically to you. Know that there's going to be different parts of your story that you will want to lead with, but make sure that you are looking at what they're looking for, not what you want to say, because your job is to help them write the article. They're going to write the article regardless. It's whether you're going to help them or not. Are you going to add a quote or not? So it isn't about you talking about your life story necessarily, because this wasn't about me. It was me contributing to this piece. So make sure that you read, what is this journalist looking for? Because you're helping them write that article based on your responses. So that's what I would say. So here's some things that I learned from pitching to media and getting PR features from my startup days. Granted, things have changed from 2015 era, but not fully. Like back then, there weren't platforms that connected people to media opportunities. I mean, this was like earlier Instagram days, it's just like the internet was a little bit different. But one of the things that I learned from pitching badly for a really long time, because nothing will teach you marketing, hiring, media, partnerships, growing a social media following, growing an email list, funding, all the things like being a startup co-founder. That was hands down one of the things that made me a better marketer, better business person, probably than any other experience in my life. So I was a co-founder of a dating app called Nectar, Neqtr. Learned so much from this experience. I worked it like a full-time job for several years because our job was to grow the app, get users in different markets, right? Because you can't have a dating app without multiple people in a city. So you can't just launch it to everyone. You have to have pilot cities. So we had people on the dating app in San Diego, LA, San Francisco Bay Area, Seattle, and New York. And so we grew this app, and part of this is getting in the media. And so one of the things I was doing, because I was the marketer, we all have a job, right? When you're a co-founder, we had two co-founders who were developers, an Apple developer and an Android developer. And then we had my friend Sonia, who was the mastermind behind the brand itself. And then I was the marketer and was also a co-founder. So it was my job to grow the platforms. I hired and recruited, like our teams and interns rather, because we didn't have money to pay people, right? This is like, we're scrappy. This is like, we're trying to get funded, right? We had like small seed fund, and I was the person that was pitching. And even though I was a marketer, I'd never done that sort of work. So what happened was when I learned my lessons, I learned it quick. And then I was like, oh, I see what it is. So you can't just go and randomly pitch and say, hey, this is what we are. This is what we're about. Because one thing that being a startup co-founder will teach you is like, nobody cares about what you're doing. Nobody cares that you believe in it. It was like the best humility exercise ever. Nobody cares. They care about what are we writing about? What are our needs? All the things, right? Same thing with investors. Investors don't care that you are so passionate about this, which is something I bring into my marketing now. I'm like, nobody cares that that's your niche. Does it meet a need in the market? How do you know? That is where the money is, right? So I have the very, like, as touchy-feely and like mindset-y as I am, I also am a very like straight up business person when it comes to like, this is the way the real world works. This is how you make money. Because I've been told no so many times. I have been rejected so many times, right? And ultimately it came down to, where's the needs? You have to think about who's the decision maker and what do they want? Who's the decision maker and what's important to them? And tell me, you got to tell them what's relevant to them, right? This isn't like, let me sell you on me and like, why this is so amazing. Nobody cared. What I had to do when it was my job to get us featured was look and find different journalists that were writing about topics that were adjacent to what we were doing. So at the time it was like other dating apps, dating in general, women's safety in dating, and like, things like that, like why women hesitate to go on dates because, all these different things, just people who are writing about women, dating apps, dating scenes, all of those things, right? And also people that were writing about, because we were a socially conscious dating app. So we wanted to match people that were wanting to make the world a better place. And we had like volunteer opportunities and like going to plant trees together and like things like that, like group dates, beach cleanups. We did all that stuff. And so eventually what happened was I developed relationships specifically with journalists who were writing about adjacent topics and just built an organic relationship with them. Started following them on Twitter, following them on Instagram, supporting their work. And this was just part of like the work that I did for a time. And because of that, and my brands spoke to me being a co-founder. And so naturally from there, building relationships with people because they would follow me back. They would see what I was posting about. What wound up happening was when an opportunity did come up where they were writing about something that I could speak to, then that's when the pitch didn't come cold because I had built those relationships with key specific journalists. And that's how we ended up getting into Marie Claire and getting into Bustle like multiple times and different magazines. And not that I want you to necessarily do all of that, although I have had clients who have products. Like I've coached clients that have like shampoo and hair care brands and things like that, where media does matter a lot more. So I don't think if you're a coach, I don't think you necessarily should be doing this. I wouldn't do any more, honestly, than just getting on something like Quoted. But the lesson still rings true, which is that even if you used it to find out who's writing about similar topics so that you can go and follow them and follow their work, support their work, read articles that they're writing. And eventually, if an opportunity comes up, you've already developed those relationships. So that's what's important, is building that versus just, being like, I just want to get into this magazine, so I'm just going to pitch. It's it doesn't necessarily work like that. So that's what I learned, is positioning yourself for something that isn't vanilla, having a perspective, making sure that your social media profiles speak to that expertise as well, because they're going to vet you there. And it could be, like I said, as simple as being in places where those opportunities are being put out, like places like Quoted. But if you have bigger PR goals and dreams of being in a specific, magazine, finding the journalists who are writing about similar or adjacent topics, building those relationships with them, supporting their work. It really, really helped when I would reach out and there were pieces that I really liked that they wrote, and I just sent my praise for the article. And that's how we ended up actually getting in. And then that journalist referred us to other journalists for other articles. So it's just a wave. And honestly, the best sort of visibility work and where my clients have gotten the best results is in that. It's just more relationship building versus going and cold pitching. I just don't normally do that. Even with Forbes, it wasn't a cold pitch. She was looking for someone, for this particular area. But that's just the biggest mistake that I see people see, is they just go and they cold pitch and then they spend the first paragraph talking about themselves. Nobody wants to read about and it's nothing about you or us or nobody wants to read about you. They need to know that you have read something that they have written, that you have listened to their podcast, that you know something about them. You cannot send a pitch that you could copy paste and send to someone else. You can't, because that's just going to be a dime a dozen. That's why the pitch, the first line is so important. When my clients pitch to podcasts, it's the same thing. I'm like, what are you saying in the first 5 words that lets this person know this is not a copy paste pitch? Yes, it's going to require some customization, but 90% of it could basically be similar, but you have to let the person know that you aren't just dropping them into some mass email. That's such a big mistake that I see, even people paying companies to pitch for them. And it's terrible because they know nothing about me. I'll have, for example, people send me 3 emails and it'll be a white woman. And I'm like, that's fine, but I probably wouldn't have a white woman on my podcast unless you acknowledged the fact that my podcast is for women of color. What's your perspective? And they just want to talk about themselves. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not interested in using my hard-earned platform to help you promote yourself and your work when you've clearly not listened to my podcast. So literally, the littlest bit of effort to customize your outreach, especially if it's something you really want to get into. And if it's the bigger it is, the less you should pitch. go develop the relationship first, support that person's work. And then when you do outreach, have it be because you see what it is that they're doing and you know that you can offer something that you think would be of value to their audience. And the first sentence really, really matters. That even if it means it takes you longer to do the outreach, you will get selected because 99.5% of outreach does not do this. And I know because I've seen it. So there's just so many lessons. And this is the reason why, like, there's more of us, more women of color could actually be featured. It's just, you just need to know what to do. And you also just need to know that, like, your story is really, really powerful as well. That's a big part. That just leading with your expertise is fine. But really, your story does matter because it adds depth, it adds complexity, it adds context, it adds interest. So just knowing what are the parts of my story that explain why I do what I do? What are the parts of my story that explain what matters to me, my values, how I do what I do differently? What are parts of my story that shaped me? All of those things are really important, not just if you're pitching to media, but just like in your brand in general, so that you are saying something that's unlike what anybody else is saying. And what I found, honestly, is that the same things that get you approached to speak are the same things that create clients. Because it means you're strongly positioning yourself. You have a perspective. You're not giving Miss America answers, right? And you have a strong story for people to resonate with and get connected with. So today's episode, we talked about getting featured in Forbes, how it came about, the actual step-by-step kind of what I did for this in particular, which you also could use for just getting featured in other places, how I use social media to introduce myself so that the person had a little bit more context into who I was, and doing that in a non-pushy way. Also, lessons that I learned from being a startup co-founder in terms of media, and the biggest mistakes that I learned firsthand from doing the wrong thing for probably the first year of that business, and how story can basically float you to the top of consideration because it's what makes you interesting and different and provides context to your responses and context into why you do what you do. And then I also talked about like what I would do if I were just wanting to put myself in the line of some media features, which is very low lift. And even if it means I pitch every 2 years, like that is fine for me. But even if you want to do that a little more actively, but not every day, versus if you have a brand that really, really benefits from media, like a product, like a physical product, how that process looks different, and the importance of building relationships versus cold pitching, and the importance of leading with custom outreach, but like honestly, building the relationships without an intention of anything happening is honestly going to pay off the most and the best in the long run. So I hope that this was helpful. I really just want more of our names out there, especially in platforms that historically don't center women of color. Just because I know I've coached so many of you, and you have incredible stories, and you have such deep expertise to the degree that you probably had to know even more to do what you're doing because you're a marginalized person, right? And so I want more of us to take up space on bigger platforms. So if you want to work on this year, whether it's increasing your visibility, media, speaking opportunities, or just get more clear on like, what is my thought leadership? I could do this with you in month-to-month Telegram coaching, because this is kind of a more narrow area of focus. This is something new that I rolled out in December. I've supported a few clients in it. It's really, really fun. In Telegram coaching, we could get clear on your offers and pricing if those have felt a little muddy. So I really help you position and be like, where is one buyer going to go for one offer versus the other? What is the difference? And I'll ask you questions that make you dig deep. So offers, pricing, messaging, or even visibility and outreach, and helping you to get clear on what your plan looks like, how you're going to pitch if that's something that you want to do. It's $700 a month, and you decide month to month. And I will just let you know if I have capacity for the following month. And so we'll start out by kind of doing an audit. I'll ask you a series of questions. Once you answer them and I have a chance to look at them, that's when we start. That way we kind of hit the ground running. And basically, Telegram is a voice memo and text app, and we just chat on there. And so I'll give you documents, things to fill out. I'll kind of do a little bit of an audit, and then we'll just chat in Telegram. You'll get the answers that you need, and I respond within 48 hours. And that's how it works. It's the only time I've ever offered anything that's month to month, but I've just found like not everybody needs to work with a coach for 6 months necessarily, especially if they're looking for a specific area of focus versus like growing their business long term, kind of deeper mindset or more complex things that they really want to work on. This is really just for something that's quick, specific. And many times from there, clients have even, some of them have even moved on to join the mastermind or consider if private coaching makes more sense. But this is just a way that you can get supported by me and make a decision about what you need next. Maybe, oh, the 1 month is enough and that's all you need and that's great. But if you have questions about that, send me a DM because it's not on my website. I don't take sales calls for this because it's a $700 offer, but I also don't put the link publicly because I want to make sure that what you're looking for actually aligns with this, because I don't want to have someone sign up for Telegram coaching for a month, but what they are needing and expecting is like private coaching 6 months. Like I'm going to say, okay, if that's what you're looking for, here's the specific thing I can help you with. And just make sure you're okay with that before you sign up, which is why you can only message me about it. DM me on Instagram. I will chat with you about it. This is just for me to let you know, do I suggest it or not? Anybody who knows me knows I'm not like selling anybody into anything. I will tell you if it doesn't make sense. So send me a message and we can go from there. All right, y'all. Thank you for hanging out with me, and I will see you on the next episode.